OPEC at its last general meeting, that was last week, decided to maintain status quo in terms of oil production. Why did they have to do that, considering the slide in oil price? And what implication does this have for a country such as Nigeria?
Since August, Saudi Arabia, the major producer among OPEC countries, signified its intention to continue with the current level of production. And the majority that now agree that no production cut, they were very much concerned with protecting their market share. Because come to think of it, if Nigeria or any OPEC countries reduce their production, the non-OPEC countries will take that market share. They will fill the gap, especially in the era in which we are. You see, there is a paradigm shift in the global oil market situation now. In the past, when there is a fall in the price of oil and OPEC wants to maintain some relative high price of oil, what OPEC does is to cut back production. Because there was no major producer that will fill the gap, OPEC can no longer afford that, because in the first place, there are so many countries. 5-10 years ago, we never heard of them having a barrel of oil, or even having any oil at all, talk less of producing and exporting. But that is not the situation. Don't forget that United States has traditionally, or even some other European countries, have traditionally been agitating for low price of oil because of the effect it tends to have on their economies. And if there's anything United States, for example, has been seeking over time, especially since 1973, during the first energy crisis, was energy independence. They've always resented the idea of depending on foreign crudes, that whenever there is any crisis in oil-producing countries, it tends to push up the price of oil to the point that it tends to dislocate their economies. Now, as you can imagine, all these countries tend to look at a way of solving their problems, if not in the short term, but in the long term. And that is what has happened now. We've had in the past when U.S. was trying to develop self-fuel, and this is likely because they are looking for various alternatives. They are developing solar or transportation through electricity and all whatnot. It's part of the strategy to gain energy independence. But nature has, the providence has produced a very realistic alternative for imported oil. That is in form of shale gas. In the next 5-10 years, U.S. will be competing fiercely with oil-producing countries. And you can bet it that there are some of the countries now that we may say we want to export oil to. They will have, it's part of political ideologies or differences among them, will probably prefer taking gas from United States or from Russia and so on. So that is the problem we are currently facing.
Well, we heard the finance minister talk about the fact that even if oil price goes down to $60 per barrel, Nigeria is ready. Are we really ready?
Maybe he knows more than what some of us know. And of course, he is in a better position to know, because if he keeps the money, the finances of, if he keeps the finances of the country, he should know more than all of us. But the key thing is this. We were doing over 2 million barrels per day oil production, out of which we export as much as about 1.8 million barrels per day. Now the price was over $100 per barrel. Assuming we are producing 2 million barrels per day, and we are exporting, say, 1.6 million barrels per day, and in the face of competition, we cannot even be too sure that we will even maintain that level of production or export. Okay, if the price now goes down to $60 per barrel, we can just do simple arithmetic. We don't need to take a computer or calculator to be doing what the effect will be on our economy. So, but the finance minister is an intellectual. He keeps government finances. From my own perspective, I cannot go into any argument, but from what I know, from what I can reason out, and from what you and some other people will reason out, you can imagine that it's not the same thing when the price of oil gets down to $60 per barrel as against when it is over $100 per barrel. Don't always forget this. There are so many fields we are developing in Nigeria that some of the major producers will think twice when the price of oil goes down to $60 per barrel. Some will say that, okay, if the price goes down to 60 to 70, we'll still continue with our major project. But when it gets down to $60 per barrel, it's a totally different ballgame, and they may have to go back to the drawing board to look at the economics to see some of the fields they want to develop, whether it could be very much viable, and the returns to their investment will be attractive enough for them to go ahead. Now, that will mean that they will have to look at other alternatives, other places where they can invest their money, and especially in an environment where the companies tend to complain about the fiscal regime we are trying to put up through the PIB. They will now be considering whether they won't have to shift their investment to some other countries that are probably be more favorable. But we can hope that the price of oil will not go down to as low as $60 per barrel for too long, because if it does, some of the, even shale gas we are talking about, or some other development in other countries cannot be sustained on the basis of low price of oil.
But for how long do you think the decline in oil price is going to continue? How long are we going to see this slide in oil price?
No, for example, we are now getting into a winter period, in Europe and in some parts of the United States. And then you may then see the price, the stock of oil, being drawn down, whereby come in another 5-6 months, the price may go up because some of the countries or companies will have to restock, and that was what informed the decision of OPEC to wait until their meeting in June next year before they now decide whether to do production cutback. Now you may see OPEC taking a strategic decision in June, or if the situation gets out of hand before June next year, you can bet that OPEC will meet to consider the alternative measures to take.
Now, some people believe that with this slide in oil price, that actually would help curb oil theft. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know. You see, let's look at it. People who sell oil, they don't have any cost of production. So whether they sell at 100 or they sell at 60, it doesn't really matter very much to them. At the end of the day, they are still making money. Yes, their gains may be reduced, but it isn't that they will not be having anything. So the incentive to steal oil is not based on the fact that the price of oil was over 100 or close to 100. It's just that they want to make additional money. The only thing is that the ease with which they can sell stolen oil, because of the voracious demand for oil, may not be as high as when there is now that there is a glut. But the fact will remain that people will, if measures are not taken to curb oil theft, there will still be some amount of oil theft going on.
Now, the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill has remained a major concern here in Nigeria. Are we likely to see this bill passed anytime soon, considering the fact that oil price is sliding?
Well, it's like the Minister of Petroleum said, the ball is in the court of National Assembly. And I think for quite some time, both Senate and House of Rep were talking about passing this bill, because we are cutting our nose to spite our face, as it were. If you look at the amount of investment we have lost over the past 5-6 years. Some of the problems we are currently having today, will not have been exacerbated, or we may have, will not have been exacerbated if we have passed the bill, and some of the investment that we have lost have actually been put in place. But the issue now is, if we don't pass find a way of passing the bill, it will be increasingly becoming difficult for us to do so, because the dynamics of the international petroleum industry and market will be changing things not in our favor, but against our favor, in terms of putting in place legislation that will put the Nigerian oil and gas industry on a sound footing. The earlier the politicians or interest groups are able to see reason and know the implications of what they are doing, the better. But I don't expect much will happen between now and probably early next year, because the National Assembly, the senators and House of Representatives members, they are now more concerned about their re-election and so on. So the attention they are paying to issues of legislation, is considerably reduced. Not to talk of some of the problems they are having, particularly in the House of Representatives. So their minds are not settled to consider the bill in a way that I feel that probably they will pass it. Although so much amount of work has been done, what is probably keeping the bill in the code is the vested interest. And once they make up their mind to say that, okay, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, let's forget about our differences. Let's put this bill, push this bill forward and pass it. I guess within a short time they can do so. But then they have to sink their differences. They have to keep the interests of the country first in their consideration, so that at the end of the day, the bill that people feel that it will provide solution to some of the problems we are having in the industry, and indeed the Nigerian economy will have been passed into law.
I'm looking at the whole scenario, looking at the situation. What is the way forward?
We have to internalize our resources. We have to expand the opportunity within our country. We have to go and quickly establish refineries to supply domestic market. Stop importation of petroleum products, for goodness sake. That is one of the things. But it's not something that will come overnight. But we have to give encouragement to those who are willing to do that. And government can go into joint venture with private sector to establish refineries. Maybe at a later time you can then sell, but government has to jumpstart some of these. We have to refine substantial proportion of our crude locally. Then we have to export products to some of these African countries apart from our own local market. Then do a sort of bilateral relations, trade relations with some countries we feel that can take our crude in the next couple of years, while we are looking at the way to diversify. And finally, we have to be prudent in managing our resources. Democracy is good, but we can make it cheaper. And the era of Scandinavia, we should recognize that it is over. But we only hope that the politicians will recognize this and let us manage the resources, the financial resources accrued to this company judiciously. If we don't do that, then we will have crisis on our streets.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fawibe. It's been an interesting conversation.
Thank you very much.
That was Dr. Dayrell Fawibe, the CEO of International Energy Services Limited. This is simply a wake-up call for government at different levels to begin to put things in the right perspective. With that, I say thank you for being part of this program today. Don't forget to keep a date with us same time next week. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwagu. Bye for now.